Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over major winter storm Shirley, which is going to be moving throughout parts of the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, and even back through into parts of the Northeast. We also have some ice issues along with that. With this major winter storm, anywhere from about Arkansas to Virginia is dealing with potentially some ice issues, and that's where you could be dealing with over a quarter of an inch of ice in some of those areas, even closer to half an inch in some of those areas, and it really will be quite a damaging and crippling storm in terms of the amount of ice that you're going to be getting. We'll have your snow and ice forecast at the end of today's video because it will definitely be a fairly big event, and we'll be timing it out for you guys as well. So here's what the current National Weather Service page looks like. It is definitely quite jam-packed with all these watches and warnings. We have some winter storm watches up through western Oregon and western Washington. Some of these areas are seeing their first significant snowfall of the year, where it's not really too big of a snowstorm, but it's still 2 or 3 inches in some of these lower lying areas. So this is going to be your first chance at some decent snow for those areas. I'll have my snowfall forecast out on my community tab on YouTube, so you can go check that out later today. I'll have that snowfall forecast out, and I'll have the details on that storm. Winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories back through parts of Idaho, Oregon, and Washington, as well as a little area in Colorado there. And then we have some more winter storm watches up through Utah, Wyoming, and Idaho as well. We have some more winter weather advisories stretching from the pretty much the entire part of northern Texas through Oklahoma, Arkansas, and all the way up to about southern New Jersey, where you're dealing with those winter weather advisories. We also have some ice storm warnings embedded within that in that dark purple, which stretches from Arkansas and Mississippi all the way up through much of the lower half of Kentucky there. We also have some winter storm warnings in effect for parts of Kentucky and West Virginia, and also up the spine of the Smoky Mountains. And then we have some winter storm watches in effect for southeastern most West Virginia and southern Virginia there, where you're looking at some winter storm watches in effect. Those might be upgraded to a few winter storm warnings, especially with the next part of the system. This is going to be a 2-part system, so the second part of that system is the one that's going to really bring a lot of snow to parts of southern Virginia and central Virginia as well. And we're also dealing with some wind chill warnings in effect for northern Montana, North Dakota, and northwestern Minnesota, as well as some wind chill advisories in the lighter blue further to the south of there. And your records for yesterday in the continental United States, your high temperature for the entire country was in Rio Grande Village in Texas. They got to 92 degrees Fahrenheit. That's in southwestern Texas, where that dark red dot is in southern Texas. And your low temperature was in Land O'Lakes, Wisconsin. They got to negative 35 degrees. That's that dark blue dot in northern Wisconsin, closer to the southern part of the UP of Michigan. And then in Geneva, Alabama, they got 2.1 inches of rain yesterday, and that was the highest rainfall report in the continental United States. So they definitely got a lot of rain, especially mainly from thunderstorm activity that rolled throughout those areas. And then the highest snowfall report yesterday was this is the first highest snowfall report in quite a while that hasn't been in the Rockies. It was in southern and central Ohio, in 10 miles northwest of Logan, Ohio. They got 10.8 inches of snowfall out of a really surprise system that gave them quite a lot of snowfall. That was one of the bigger storms in the past few years for those areas. You guys really haven't seen too many major storms in the past couple of years, so that was definitely a surprise few inches of snowfall. And much of southern Ohio, even parts of Indiana, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania got 6+ inches out of that. So there was definitely some pretty high reports out of that, and it was definitely a surprise system that really caught a lot of us off guard. So here's what the current radar looks like as of when I'm recording this, and I'm recording this at right around 12:26 p.m. Central Time, 1:26 p.m. Eastern Time, so that's when this is valid for. And we're looking at more of that snow moving throughout parts of the Ohio Valley, scattered light snow showers, and then we're already starting to see some of that icy precipitation start to set up through parts of Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and back through into parts of Arkansas. And we have some rain already setting up further to the south into southeastern Kentucky, southwestern Virginia, southern West Virginia. So right now the storm is going as planned, and it's actually a little bit further north. Like I said yesterday, I did think that yesterday it would shift to the north. I said that in my video, and sure enough, it did end up going further to the north, and now we're dealing with this system just a little bit further to the north than what we were expecting yesterday, and the models definitely did shift a little bit overnight. So here's what the current European model high resolution is showing, and we're going to kind of move this forward for you guys. So here's what it currently looks like, or right around this time. This is what the European model was forecasting. It's showing those ice bands back through into Arkansas, Missouri, and Kentucky. That is definitely setting up. We have some scattered icy precipitation moving throughout there. We have that rain into these areas, and yes, that is popping up on the radar as well. And then we have those scattered snow showers throughout the Ohio Valley. So right now it is going quite to plan. According to what the models were showing, it is actually going kind of what we were expecting so far. So that's definitely a good sign that we do have some continuity with the models and what is actually happening. Now this would be by later tonight, so this would be by 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We start to get some of that snow to move through the Washington, D.C. area from anywhere in the Mid-Atlantic, basically westward into parts of Kentucky and Ohio. That's where we're dealing with some of that lighter to moderate snowfall, maybe even a few heavier bands of snowfall. We are going to start to see a more uniform band of snow, actually ice precipitation, start to set up through parts of Kentucky and Tennessee. Now, this is going to continually shift further to the south as we go overnight, and as those cold temperatures start to hit into parts of the Mid-Atlantic and into the Tennessee Valley. That area of ice and snow is all going to shift further to the north, so that's going to allow some of those areas that we're seeing heavy ice precipitation to get some snow. So you might have a base layer of ice over a lot of these areas, and then you might see some snow on top of that. So it's definitely going to be very, very tricky to try and shovel out of that. So definitely make sure that you aren't traveling too far, or make sure that at least if you are traveling, that you're going pretty slow, so that you don't get into any accidents in these types of conditions. There are definitely a lot of accidents, unfortunately. So hopefully you guys are staying safe during this storm if you do need to be out and about. Here to be by later tonight into tomorrow morning, and we're dealing with more of that snow moving throughout parts of the Mid-Atlantic, so from Pennsylvania down through northern Virginia and northern West Virginia, including much of Maryland, Delaware, and now getting to parts of New Jersey. We do have a couple of pockets here, and we do want to watch out for this potential of a few pockets of heavier snow. So you might see a few bands that get a bit more snowfall and a bit heavier snowfall. Where that sets up, of course, is going to dictate who sees the heaviest snowfall out of this event, and this is when the cold air really starts to press in. So this would be by tomorrow, right around 12 in the morning. We're dealing with more of that snow still back through into the Mid-Atlantic, parts of the Northeast as well, and that ice and that snow is going to start to move further to the south. So now we're dealing with our first system, low pressure, right over here. That's going to continue to move out to the east, but we're actually dealing with another area of precipitation and energy starting to come out of parts of Arkansas and Mississippi, and that's going to head out further to the north and to the east. And that's what's actually going to become your bigger storm as you get into parts of central and southern Virginia and even parts of West Virginia. That's where these areas are going to get into a little bit more snowfall. And unfortunately for those of you guys who like snow, if you live within this area, it looks like you might kind of dodge most of the snow, because you'll be on the southern end of the first system, but on the northern fringe of the next system. So you might actually miss out on most of that snowfall. And you'll see my snowfall forecast at the end of today's video, where I'll go over more details over what I'm expecting. So this would be by Thursday morning. We're resetting, we're getting the next system to roll through, and now we're seeing that icy precipitation setting up further to the south. So this would be by 6 a.m. Central Time, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, and we're looking at more of that icy precipitation still setting up from Arkansas to about Kentucky and Virginia, and we're still dealing with more of that snow back through the Mid-Atlantic. The snow tapers off as that first system starts to head out, but here's your next system. All of this energy back further to the south is your next system, and that's what's going to end up bringing, again, areas a little bit further to the south, so more of that heavier snowfall. So this would be by tomorrow right around lunchtime, and we're looking at right around 12 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, more of that snow back through southern Kentucky, northern Tennessee, and parts of Arkansas as well. And now we're starting to see some of that snow develop on that northern edge of this. Exactly where that northern fringe sets up is going to be interesting, because as you noticed from the last system, we saw the heavier snow back through here. We're now seeing that with the second system, the northern edge of that snow is right around here. So that hole right here, wherever that sets up, wherever that 50-mile area between both systems sets up, is going to be where you get a little bit less snowfall than the surrounding areas. So you will kind of see a little bit of a hole of snowfall over some of those areas, and that's going to be reflected in my snow forecast. We see that lighter to moderate snowfall back through southern Virginia and southern West Virginia, and this one is going to slide out further to the east. This would be by tomorrow night into right around 1 a.m. Eastern time. On Friday, we're dealing with more of that snow through much of central and southern Virginia, and then it kind of stalls out, and then eventually we'll head out probably by Friday morning, and I think by noon right around Friday it should be all said and done with, and maybe you just see some scattered rain or snow showers left over. Here's the ice forecast from the European model, which we just looked at, and some of these amounts are staggering. And the recent ice storm that we saw was over Oklahoma and Texas, and that's the last ice storm that I remember that had some of these amounts closer to what we're seeing right now. So it's been a couple months since then, and this is definitely going to be your next big storm over the United States in terms of ice. And we're dealing with parts of eastern Kentucky, maybe getting over 3/10 of an inch of ice, and even a tenth of an inch of ice can cause a lot of issues. So you can imagine when you're getting 3 times that amount, even 5 times or more that amount in some of these areas, that can really cause some big issues. You get down through Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee, where you have a bit more warm air pressing into the cold air. That allows for a lot of ice. So there will be quite some high amounts of ice throughout parts of Mississippi, especially northwestern Mississippi, western Tennessee, east central Arkansas, where you're dealing with some of that heavier ice accumulation. Here's the snow forecast from the European model, and you can see that little hole of snowfall back through central Virginia, southern Maryland, and generally those areas. And then you see that heavier snow to the south, you see the heavier snow to the north. So we do want to watch out exactly where those two areas of heavier snow do set up, and generally under 2 inches for anywhere pretty much outside of that blue area. Now here's what the NAM model is showing, the North American model, and this is a very high resolution model. Sometimes it does actually do quite well with these types of systems, so we do want to take it into account. Shows that snow hole over basically that same area, but it shows a lot less snow for southern Virginia. We'll have to see how exactly that does play out. We do see some of those higher amounts though as you get through Maryland, northern Delaware, southern New Jersey, where you're seeing some of those 4+ inch amounts according to this model. Here's what the RGEM model is showing, which is the regional Canadian model, and we're dealing with a general 2 to 6 inches of snowfall, all from about central New Jersey, southern Pennsylvania, southward to about central Virginia. So this one has less of a snow hold. You see some tapering off of the amounts right around the latitude of Washington, D.C., but generally much of this area is 4+ inches according to this model. We'll have to see how accurate that is. There is still some slight discrepancies that we still need to figure out, and I might actually have another update on the second part of the system later this week. I'll have to see how active the pattern is if we need to move on to a next system. Here's what the icon model is showing. I actually agree with this one quite a bit. It shows that hole of snow just to the south of Washington, D.C. It shows that 4-inch plus area right through here, as well as for another area in southern Virginia, and then it shows much of the state of West Virginia over about 3 inches of snowfall. Here's what the GFS model is showing, and it is showing a lot of snow back through here. I don't think that's too legitimate. It has some hard times figuring out when there's freezing rain into the equation. The GFS is definitely not the type of model that you want to be using when you're dealing with freezing rain, so I really wouldn't take this into account. I think it's adding some of that freezing rain and turning it into snowfall, so that's not too accurate right there. So you can kind of X that out. That's going to be most likely in the form of freezing rain, but back through here it is showing a general 2 to 6 inches of snowfall for these areas. And moving on to the National Weather Service's forecast, you see a general 2 to 4 inch trend for much of the Mid-Atlantic, fairly general and broad forecast. Basically, they're showing not really too much of a snow gap like some of the other models were showing, just a general 2 to about 4 inches with a few pockets of 5 to 6 inches or even more in some of those areas. So here's my ice and snowfall forecast. This is the ice forecast that started out under a tenth of an inch of ice in this area, anywhere from Oklahoma, Arkansas, back through into northern Mississippi, all the way up to parts of southern Maryland and into parts of Virginia as well. So And that's where I'm looking at under a tenth of an inch of ice. Here's that tenth of an inch to a quarter of an inch of ice area, and that includes a little bit of Oklahoma back through Arkansas, northern Mississippi, into parts of Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, western Virginia, and north central parts of North Carolina there. That's where you're getting over a tenth of an inch of ice. Here's that quarter of an inch to half an inch area, and that includes southeastern Kentucky as well as western Tennessee, northern Mississippi, parts of eastern Arkansas, and even parts of southeastern Missouri there, where you're getting over a quarter of an inch of ice, and even a few pockets of half an inch or more of ice for some of these areas in east and southeastern mainly parts of Arkansas, as well as parts of southwestern Tennessee, and into a little bit of southeastern Kentucky there, where I'm looking at over half an inch of ice. That can cause some real issues out on the roadways. And here's what the snowfall forecast is. I'm expecting under an inch of snowfall in any of these regions, and this is where you could just get some light snowfall. Some of that is already ongoing, and that spreads from Kansas to right around southeastern Massachusetts. So it's a fairly broad area of at least some snowfall, some snow showers, or some sort of snowfall. Here's that 1 to 3 inch area, and that there's two little fingers of snowfall where you see one through central Illinois, central Indiana, and back through Ohio, and then another one through southern Illinois, southern Indiana, and into northern Kentucky, and then back further to the east. Those are where I think you could get a couple bands of heavier snowfall to set up. Here's that 3 to 6 inch area, and you can't really see it because the numbers are blocking it, but I do have a hole of snow right throughout this region where I think you'll be right in between both of those. So that area I'm expecting under 3 inches. The surrounding areas, that's where I'm looking at 3+ inches of snowfall for you. And then even a little part of West Virginia, north central West Virginia, western parts of Maryland, extreme western Maryland, that's where I'm looking at 6+ inches, most likely closer to 6 to 8 inches of snowfall. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.